Hello and welcome to Board Game Madness. I'm Mike Ganade, and we are in our round 3 of Elite 8 top games of my collection. And today we have the number 4 seed, Pandemic Legacy Season 0, versus the number 5 seed, Sleeping Gods. So not only do we have two games that are very close as far as Board Game Geek rankings go and seeding goes, but we also have two games that are about storytelling to an extent. There's some narrative direction to each of these, and they're both cooperative games. So, they're not competitive games like a lot of the other ones. These are both games that you're going to work together or play solo with other players. So we're going to start off with production, which is the first category. And again, I'm going to try to focus on value. So keep in mind, at least when I recorded this video and sort of checked online, Pandemic Legacy Season 0 went for about $80. That was sort of its MSRP. And Sleeping Gods is $100. So they're pretty close in price point, but this is a little cheaper, at $20 cheaper. As far as production goes, I think both of these games give you a ton of stuff for their price. I think the big question is sort of, what type of stuff do you care more about in your games? A lot of what Sleeping Gods gives you, Sleeping Gods is a bunch of cardboard punch-outs, a bunch of status symbols, a bunch of different resources that are cardboard chits, exhaustion drops that go, that go on your cardboard boards, player boards. There's how many? I think there's like 9. Yeah, there's 9 crew members of the ship. So you have 9 different player boards for all the crew members. You have the map in the center, the map book, you have the narrative book. You've got another board with like your ship and where you move your worker around on it. That's like another cardboard thing. So Sleeping Gods is a lot of cardboard. There's a few wooden components. There's some like blue hexagons for combat. There's some wooden blood droplets for combat. And then I think there's a couple wooden cubes. But otherwise, everything is sort of cardboard punch. The reason I'm bringing that up is because in Pandemic Legacy Season 0, you're getting much more other stuff. It's not so much cardboard punch. You have the board, you have the cards, you have the wonderful passports and their stickers that let you build your character. Most of the cardboard in this has to do with all the dossiers and cardboard and secrets that you open and new rules that you put in the sticker book as it being part of a legacy game. But there are the plastic cubes. There's plastic little agent figurines, like little miniatures for the communist agents in each city. And then you have little vans for each region. And you have, like, what are they, safe houses in this one. You have safe houses that are also plastic little miniatures that go on the board. And then you have all the stickers and everything that go on the board and manipulate things as they go. So for me, having the variety of components in Pandemic Legacy and being a legacy with all the boxes that you open, and the fact that the passport component itself is so wonderful, I would definitely give production to Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I think like most legacy games, the production, it's so much fun to open the secret boxes and just continually opening new contents and discovering it. And the production of this one is the best of the series, in my opinion. And the passport component itself, which is not a spoiler, the stickers and everything that come with that is absolutely incredible. And I appreciate that a lot of the other components on the board are sort of upgraded to plastic miniatures and things and cool little vans and other things that lean into the theme. Sleeping Gods, I just think, falls a little bit underneath that because so much of its extra stuff is organizational stuff. I do really like the magnetic box that sorts all your quests, but it's mostly cards and cardboard. You're not getting any sort of like upgraded or deluxe components, if you will. If you're used to that kind of thing, you're not going to find it in Sleeping Gods. It's not what the game's about. But in this round, I would have to give production to Pandemic Legacy, especially considering it's $20 cheaper. And I think you're getting a little bit more, if not the same, between them. So I'm going to go with Pandemic Legacy for production, and we're going to move on to game mechanics. Now here, I have to talk about the storytelling element of both of these games, because Both of these games do have storytelling elements, and depending on how important that is to you, I could see you falling on different ends of the spectrum here. I think the storytelling system in Sleeping Gods is among the best out there in board games. The way the choose your own adventure style works with their book and integrates into the cards and adventure cards and the keywords that unlock new things and new options for you in choose your own adventure in this game is one of the best parts of the game. The storytelling is really good. All the characters are clearly defined as you play, and naming the characters lets you have a good variety and diversity within the crew instead of you sort of playing the characters, or if you're playing it solo, you playing like 9 different characters. Each character is given their own distinct backstory and voice and, you know, quirks and characteristics during the course of the campaign, and I appreciate that. The storytelling in this game is far superior to that of Pandemic Legacy, in my opinion. Pandemic Legacy Season 0 does have some storytelling in it. It's a spy motif, and there are cards and mission briefings that you flip over that help immerse you into the game. I just don't think it's the same. It's just not as strong. It's not its focus as much as Sleeping Gods. Sleeping Gods puts story in front of a lot of other things, whereas Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is just giving you that story motif and little hints as you sort of work through the legacy campaign of the game to help you make decisions and play with your group. That being said, while I think the story over here is far superior, the storytelling mechanisms of the game mechanics are much stronger here. I think the core gameplay is much stronger in Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I'd go as far as to say that this is among my favorite cooperative games, but I've always loved the Pandemic system. It's one of the first cooperative games I ever played when I got back into the hobby, and I still have a very fond spot for the original in my heart. And Season 0, in my opinion, is the strongest of the Legacy games so far. I like how it mixes stuff up enough but doesn't completely change the core mechanic like Season 2 of the Legacy did. And Season 1 was a little too much like the base game. Season 0 is just that perfect mix sort of between the two other ones, in my opinion, of hitting a new theme, changing the core mechanisms a little bit without completely reinventing it, and building on top of that with really cool theme and storytelling and other things. So, Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is one of my absolute favorites. So when it comes to game mechanics, I think it's much stronger than Sleeping Gods, because from the mechanic side of things, the only thing, while the storybook mechanisms and the card and adventure structure in this is very interesting, I find the combat very bland, and I find, the resource gathering is basically just an outcome of what you're doing on your ship or what you're choosing in the adventure book. So, you're choosing an action to take on your ship, which is like move your ship around and explore more, generate resources. Like that's a very simple worker placement thing, which is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. It works to getting to all the story elements, but then the combat does suffer. So for me, you have sort of a clear winner in each category, and I'm going to sort of blend this into the next category, but I'm going to say that for game mechanics, for me, Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is much stronger. If you stripped away the story from each of these and just had to play the game, I wouldn't play this game, but I would play this game. I don't know how you'd strip away the story from this game. It's so intricate in it, but just as an example, if the storytelling mechanisms weren't in there and it was just about managing your ship and fighting, I would not be as interested in this game. Whereas Pandemic Legacy, the story is a nice thing to have, but the core gameplay loop of it is incredibly satisfying to me. So I'm going to give Pandemic Legacy Season 0 the game mechanics category as well. But we're going to move on to theme, and some of these things I'm talking about when it comes to integrating theme and story are going to benefit Sleeping Gods, because Sleeping Gods puts story at the forefront, the theme and story of the game sort of permeate through and are the star of the show, if you will. And while I don't, while I don't think this like the theme of this game, as far as like an adventure game in an alternate world with like these big sleeping gods, is all that intriguing, like sort of on the surface as a one-liner. I think the 1960s spy theme is a stronger like theme to delve into, but this theme is very shallow. Whereas this theme is intricately wound into the story and the game, and really the world building behind the storytelling makes the theme of the game even stronger. This cover may not be super interesting to you right off the bat, but when you start playing through the story and learning about all these characters and experiencing the narrative of the game, the theme and the world building is really first class. So we have to give theme to Sleeping Gods, even though I quite like the motif of Legacy Season 0. So now it comes down to replayability. And we may have to go into overtime here because as a legacy game, Pandemic Legacy Season 0 sort of can only be played about 12 to 24 times. That's sort of the nature of these legacy games. If you succeed, you move on to the next month, and you sort of play over the course of a year in this one. And if you fail, you get you get one or two retries before you fail forward. And once you finish this game, if it's anything like Pandemic Legacy Season 1, you're either saving the game as a memory box or you're putting in the trash. There's no real way to reset and experience the Legacy campaign in the same way as you did the first time. With that being said, I do think what legacy games do, as far as replayability goes, is I do think they drive you to play all the content and see everything through. I think it's very addicting to continue to open new packages, have more to discover in the box, and very rarely are there legacy games that do not come to completion. Every legacy game I've finished, except Pandemic Legacy Season 2, because the core loop of that one just wasn't as strong. And I haven't gotten rid of it yet. I just have sort of put it on the back burner and skipped ahead to this one. It's not like I wouldn't ever complete it. It waned on me a little bit in my group that I was playing it with. So I could sort of probably take over and play everyone myself and finish it. But I finished the other legacy Pandemic games, and I finished the other legacy game I played was the Ion's End legacy game, which I definitely finished. And then I got rid of the game. That one you could replay as just Ion's End, but for me, even though you could continue playing it, the experience was over. So legacy games do sort of put a hard out on the game, if you will, and the only way to replay them would be to really purchase them again. So that is a big negative when it comes to replayability, because you can't replay them forever, and they can't stay in your collection forever. But I do think they drive you to finish them, which is an important thing to think about. Maybe not in this particular round, but in future rounds. Now, Sleeping Gods, on the other hand, is a sandbox game with a campaign with a multitude of choices that can be reset and replayed. I forget what they say the original. Let's see if it says on the back of the box. Yeah, it says a campaign takes 1 to 20 hours on the back of the box, which feels 20 hours seems a bit long. I'd say you're probably finishing a campaign in half that time, most likely, but different groups are different. And I do think that you can always reset and replay the story, and especially as the years go on and you forget the intricacies of it, or you throw away the notes you've taken on these sheets, you could definitely replay Sleeping Gods from the beginning, and it's infinitely replayable. I think what's interesting here is that you would replay this to see new outcomes and visit new spots on the map and try to see more and more of the content and more of the story. And you have to keep good records to do that. I know when I replayed the campaign, I retread some of the same spots because I was trying to maximize beating the game, quote unquote. It wasn't about just exploring everything there was that the game had to offer. So depending on what your goals are, I think the replayability is sort of, if you really care about seeing all the story stuff, You could do that, replay it a bunch of times, but if you're about like maximizing and beating the game, I think 2 or 3 playthroughs of the campaign is gonna get you there successfully. But I can't deny that. So as close as they are, and probably honestly, if I'm speaking to myself, I've probably put a little more time into Sleeping Gods, but not that much more than Pandemic Legacy Season 0. So I played it a little bit more. But I actually think the replayability, it's sort of where you fall on the spectrum of, do you want something in your collection that you can put on the shelf and share with people forever? Or are you looking for an incredibly strong experience that's going to be super memorable, but then can only be repeated by paying the entry fee again, by buying another copy? So while I will give replayability to Sleeping Gods, when it comes to the overall value and the lasting experience of these games, sort of as my tiebreaker, I have to go with Pandemic Legacy Season 0. It's $20 cheaper than this game, and I think you're going to get as much out of Sleeping Gods, if not more. I certainly think that when you finish this game and put it away, or throw it out, or put it up on your wall, or whatever you're going to do with it, that you will look back fondly on your experience throughout this entire game as one of the pinnacles of your tabletop experience. That's where Pandemic Legacy Season 1 sits for me, and Season 0 is right on track to take over that spot once I finish the last 2. I've got a couple more months left in this one. But it's been an absolute joy to experience and explore this game. And while I would say the same about Sleeping Gods, after playing through the campaign a couple times, I am not driven to play through this game and experience much more of it. So for me personally, Pandemic Legacy just is the stronger one. If I had to pick one, I would absolutely go with Pandemic. Sleeping Gods does some amazing things, but also has some missteps. And I think I mentioned this in my previous videos, which you can go back and watch if you want to learn more about either of these games. But I actually have Sleeping God Distant Skies, which is the sequel to this. And I'm hoping that it keeps everything, all the storytelling stuff that this did so well, and improves on the game mechanisms and turn stuff that sort of bogged down what I thought was the most enjoyable experience of Sleeping Gods. Whereas I think Pandemic Legacy has the advantage of being the third in the series, and it makes itself the strongest because through those iterations, they've sort of found the best levers to pull in this legacy format of Pandemic. So that's our result for today. Pandemic's going to move on to the final 4, one of the top 4 games in my collection. And I'm going to remind you to like and subscribe to this video as I sign off and say that I will see you in our next video, and thank you so much for watching.